My name is Caitlin Smith. I'm the Outreach and Programs Coordinator with the Ajo Center for Sustainable Agriculture. And today I am joined by Guadalupe Ramirez and Ben Blevins, if I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. They are from the Highland Support Project based out of Virginia. And they're going to be talking about the transformative impact of cooperatives. And I'm going to let them take it away and start their presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Fantastic, and thank you very much for the invitation. And we so enjoy following all the amazing things that Ajo Center does. It's truly enriching our lives, and we are very appreciative for the opportunity to share in the fabulous network and all of the amazing transformational stuff happening out of Ajo. I'm going to start off real quick because Lupe asked me to share some context and concepts. And then Lupe will take over and talk about her experiences as an Indigenous person with cooperativism in her community of Tejutla, San Marcos, and Guatemala. Oops, first got to share. So share screen. Your share screen, and then it covers up the. So I'm hoping you guys can see this. Let me check the chat box. Is my screen sharing with you guys good?
Yep, looks good.
Thank you. So to begin with, those might remember from prior presentations, is as an organization, we're very concerned with the notion of structure and how structures impact human lives, our experiences, and our communities. And we use potatoes as an analogy for understanding what a structure is, in that a potato is much like human beings. And with a potato, you can make mashed potatoes, French fries, hash browns, scalloped potatoes. The potato remains the same, but a structure produces a predictable result. So when we look at historical processes, social structures, we can identify kind of like a recipe. And if we change the recipe, we can change the outcomes. And if we think about different structures that we experience in life, we see around us, people talk about Appalachia here on the East Coast or inner city suburbs. We're very concerned with a specific historical structure of settler colonialism and how that has impacted all of our lives and creates harmful and oppressive structures. Harmful and destructive processes that repeat the same outcomes generation after generation. Why isn't this? And Guadalupe asked that I share something about the context of the community where she comes from, which is Tejutla in the department of San Marcos in Western Guatemala. And we feel it's important to talk about this because structures, when they produce predictable outcomes, and throughout the Americas, from Argentina to Canada, we see a historical structure. Our organization is called the Highland Support Project. We're looking at highland communities in the Americas, which in the settler colonial invasion of Europeans conquering the Americas, a process happened in which indigenous populations were marginalized the highland regions. So whether we're talking about Peru, Ecuador, Bolivia, Guatemala, Arizona, Montana, you find indigenous communities that are demonstrating similar outcomes, quality of life outcomes, low infant birth rate, high infant mortality, lower life expectancy. So we can see how there are these structures producing predictable results. And we feel it's, one, very important to identify that this is not a legacy of either the culture or the context. So Guadalupe is going to be talking about Tejutla and her family's experience and the conditions of disempowerment and low quality of life when it comes in terms of physical health. But we think it's really important to identify that these conditions are a consequence of settler colonialism. And looking at Tejutla, which is in this area where the blue dot is in Guatemala, to realize when the Spanish invaded, they did several things. One is they took the rich cropland, the rich agricultural lands, and very importantly, they interrupted markets. And we were recently in Arizona last week, and Guadalupe was really amazed at looking at all the trade routes and how there were feathers from Central America up in Tanto and the petrified forests. Frequently today, we are taught a kind of image that indigenous communities were isolated and primitive. Of course, in Central America, when the Spanish arrived, they noted that the largest markets they'd ever seen anywhere in the world was in Teotihuacan in Mexico and Central America. And this map here shows the very extensive trade routes. And where Guadalupe is from, before European invasion, it was a major trading route and located in this topographical map, you can see the mountain regions. It was located in an area that had a very valuable trade item, obsidian, from the Tacomuco, which is the highest volcano in Central America. And something to note is on this topographical map, something that really annoys us is when people think of countries like Guatemala as poor countries, without realizing it's actually one of the wealthiest countries in the entire world. In economic terms, you have supply and demand. When there's very little of something, it's worth a lot. So you might have heard of the term banana republic, referring to countries like Guatemala. This zone here, this very green zone, you can grow products there that you can't grow in the global north or south, like coffee, bananas, pineapple, sugar. So these tropical fruits are extremely valuable. So what happened with the Spanish conquest is the Europeans took all of this extremely valuable and highly fertile and productive land and dedicated it to agro-export, dedicated it to very few Europeans owning all of the land and growing extremely valuable products to sell globally. So when we talk about Tejutla in the 19th and 20th century and people barely being able to survive, something that's important to understand is historically it was a very wealthy, well-off community, but it was that way because of trade. The highland region, it's hard to grow sufficient food at that altitude in order to meet both your nutritional needs and to create wealth. The wealth was created that sustained the community at that elevation in those mountains as being part of a international trade route going all the way to the Iroquois, the Powhatan in Virginia, Arizona. So a very extensive trade route that facilitated people living there. One of the aspects of the colonial invasion was the slavery, the creation of the plantation system, and the implementation of a structure of disempowerment, a disempowering structure. And some of the key aspects of that is not only was your labor taken from you in your land, but also forms of social organization, such as community committees, political structures. These were all prohibited. So in Guatemala, for the indigenous community, you can somewhat visualize it like being in a state of anarchy, in that the indigenous population was not allowed to develop their own businesses, their own strategies of survival, their own organizational structures. They were forced into a system of complete dependency on the European conquerors. And in studying culture and studying organizational behavior, whether you're talking about a corporation in New York City or a community group, there's certain structures, there's certain processes that are identified as being disempowering, taking people's power away from them. And things like high rule structure, um, having limited opportunity, limited abilities to both form networks with other people to figure out ideas, or opportunities to develop skills. And so you are from birth to death doing the same repetitive task every day, such as picking coffee or cutting sugar cane, and not having opportunity to develop greater skills to figure out how to develop a better strategy for survival in the location and environment where you've been destined to live. One of the big things that was introduced that Lupe will talk about is the cooperative model. And I just real quick want to get that the primary dynamic of a cooperative that makes it really empowering is that as an organizational structure, it functions to increase the power of the members. So it's an empowering process. So separating the difference between a corporation and a cooperative, like in Guadalupe's community, they bought a truck, and that truck was a transformational moment in the lives of the community. The difference between a corporation and a cooperative is that in a corporation, the corporation would own that truck, and everybody working the fields would work for the corporation, and some outside investors would benefit from the profits made from owning that truck. Whereas in a cooperative, the cooperative exists to make its members money. So the members actually own the truck. The truck takes their produce to a market far away where they get a better price. And the benefit, the profits from that better price is returned back to the members of the cooperative. So I'm going to turn it over to Lupe to share her life experience as being a product of the cooperative movement.
Thank you, Ben. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you a little bit of my experience living in Guatemala. Like Ben saying in the beginning and showing the map, I am returning to the map again, just to have understanding where I come from. Like you can have a visual where I come from. So in the center of the screen, if you see it, there is a little map, Guatemalan map, and there's a little black dot over there. That's where I come from. Is the name of the town is Tejutla. Tejutla is the Mayan name. I'm descended from the Mayan Maya Mam group, and so basically, I think I am here because the inherit some strength in braveness.
Braveness?
Bravery? From my grandmother. And she was basically a slave in the coffee plantation in the south of Volcan Tajumulco. That's where she basically was. She was in charge. She was one of the cooks of the plantation, so she learned how to do bread. And we know this because I grew up selling bread in Tejutla, and so when they decide to leave the plantation, she and her brother and husband decided to leave the coffee plantation by foot because there was no roads to go more than guiding by the, if they take one of the roads to behind the volcano, Tajumulco, they will be fine. Another city, which is Tejutla, was one of the Mayan cities where for centuries was conducting trades. So when they get to my town, Tejutla, there was a lot of suffering because you can imagine moving from place to place, or even when you just move from house to house here in the United States, it takes a while to set it up, you things in your house. So you can imagine set it up the time that the corn will grow in different areas where they're living, the time of collecting the different greens that they used to eat. So all of that, it needs to be in place, and understanding where basic things are, like water, like food, and what will take the time to grow and to plant and harvest. So in the meantime, there was a lot of poverty and misery in the town. But we are talking, I'm talking about the late 1890s. Later on, in 1992, there was a big eruption of volcano Santa Maria. 1892. 1892. It was the big eruption of the volcano Santa Maria, where basically the only thing that they know how to know what is the next day is by the chickens that was looking for either water or something to eat outside. So they told us that it was like a week or a week and a half where that it was dark outside, but they survived that eruption. So you can imagine, not having things to eat and how to adapt yourselves in that new location. So my grandmother had two kids, and those two kids survived. Then my grandmother, Adriana had three kids, and she the first two kids, they died. One died from upper respiratory infections, and the other one died of intestinal infections. And it was only my mom who basically survived from all of this disease. There was no roads to my town. Basically, in 1968 or later. I remember going out of my town in 1982. You have to get out with machetes and shovels and things like that to pass the roads, because it was a lot of mudslides and things like that. So my grandmother don't have a place to go to receive medical attention for her kids. There was only my mom who survived, and in that time, we are talking already, 1950s, and in that time, there was one Belgian missionaries who came into my town, and then they start teaching some organizations and different ideas of how to overcome poverty. One of the things that I remember that they told us, and my father's always was telling us that, is that you have head, you have hands, you're not missing any body part. You can overcome, and you can do anything. You can put your mind into it. When a lot of when some help and some push from the different organizations that was working in the area, we was able to overcome this poverty. And basically, the first thing that the missionaries did was, one was education, and the most important part was the introduction of the cooperative movement, the cooperative teaching. Now, the cooperative teaching or the cooperative movement is one of those things that it's not a magic word, but it is, and it's a structure that you can follow in order to, I guess, adapt yourselves into whatever situation you are living these days. I think the structure of cooperative allow us to learn how the market operates, because the marketplace now is, it has a lot of more ideologies from the Western, from Europe. And I feel like everything is from accumulation of wealth that is also, that also forget about your neighbor. And the most important part is forget where the resources come from, because the resources come from the Mother Earth. And that's something that we learn how to live together, understand the Western thought, but at the same time, trying to don't forget where we come from. So the cooperative has a lot of different things. One is administration. The other one is, it's free of join. So it has promotes democracy. There also, it has another committee that is the vigilance committee. And also they have the education committee. And so all of these four components go hand by hand every single day in order to, the structure will function. And one of the first things that my parents did, one is receiving education. The literacy program was very, it was very important. When I was, even when I was 16 years old in 1988, I still was teaching. I was part of teaching, part of the literacy program in the cooperative. And so when the literacy program, then after that, they teach my parents how to do the community organization. And also the most important part is how to do bookkeeping. I think that situation of bookkeeping and understanding where we are operating now, that was very important for the community to understand how to balance the books. And also because it was an agricultural community, one of the things is that we can't really, we don't really sell corn because everybody plants corn around town. So that was not the commodity that they was selling. One of the things that we were selling in order to earn some, currency, quetzales, that's the currency in Guatemala, but before that, pesos, was the introduction of wheat. So they teach us, they teach my parents how to grow wheat. And from that, the growing of the wheat from our family basically was from growing the wheat, selling part of the wheat, and the other part of the wheat converted into bread. So we can sell it in the local market. So, and also we have something to trade for eggs and firewood and things like that, chickens or things like that. That was basically my mother. One of the things that my mother did it all the time, and it still does, trade either clothing or, for firewood and things like that. So, and that was one of the discussions that my mother and my father always have. that she likes to trade, and my father was like, you have to operate in this cash economy. We have to pay for doctors. We have to pay for education. So there was some discussion every time around the table, but who, you know, as a family, who don't have discussions. So that was one of the things that little by little my mother was understanding the whole thing. And of course, we have 5 daughters. My parents have 5 daughters. I am the oldest, and we always, you know, we was part of the hand labor to making everything, especially the bread and selling the bread. But my father was mostly working at the cooperative and looking for better prices for the wheat, because selling bread is not gonna, you have to diversify in order to keep going with the family and the cooperative. Later on, all of the members of the cooperative got understanding how the market works, to the time that several of the members came into competition with the own cooperative. They know they start saving some money, and then they start also buying wheat, and they are the ones who also selling the wheat in different markets. So providing a little bit more money, I don't know, providing a little bit more money outside of the cooperative to the farmers. And so, so looking into that situation, the cooperative said we cannot compete with them. They are going ahead, so we have to support them. So instead of competing with this entrepreneur people in town, they developed the UNODO program about lending money. But lending money doesn't mean that you can just give money and then there is a lot of more responsibility to just to give money away. They have also the responsibility to keep going with the cooperative. And so from that reason, they also developed another school, the agricultural school. And then at the agricultural school, they create different crops. So how to grow carrots, how to grow the spinach or the broccoli was one of the things that that was going on over there. And also there was introduction of potatoes. So what potatoes you're gonna, how long it's gonna take this crop to grow, so they can also figure it out how long will take this person to pay the loan that they already provide. So all of this was basically with the when the thought of helping the community, not to and make sure that the community was growing with different businesses. At the same time, the cooperative was supporting a small hospital. And if you have a hospital, you're gonna have medicine, you need a pharmacy. One of my aunts was also part of this cooperative movement, and also she was part of, she was running the pharmacy. Situation was that she learned all of the thing about the pharmacy, and then she said, thank you, I am leaving, I am putting my own pharmacy. And she borrowed money from the cooperative to put the own pharmacy. So and one thing is, the cooperative was saying, the pharmacy is not really our thing. Our thing is lending money, is guiding people how to basically create wealth or create capital to start their own businesses. So this is one of the things about the cooperative, and see where you can help your members, how you can help to grow the members of the cooperative. My father, thanks to this cooperative, in one generation, my family, you know, basically become from dying in the side of the mountains to 5 girls that they have education. My father put me in a school, and I become a teacher because that was the opportunity we have over there, become a teacher. And also my sister became a teacher. She is now, my second sister is now a principal of the local school. My third sister has an MBA. It has her own bookstore. My fourth sister, she is a CPA, and now she's running my father and mother's business. And my baby sister, she is a chemical engineer working in Guatemala City. But what I'm seeing over here is that everybody come back to town every festivity, and every festivity is like a the gathering of all of these cousins and friends who been working already as a professional in different parts around Guatemala. But we have that pride to come back to Tejutla, and there is something about Tejutla that we feel so proud to be from Tejutla, and that we can interact with different worlds. We can interact with the native world, but we also interact with the Western world that is totally different. And we always said that we had 2 faces, because one face we put it when mom and dad, when our community, when our elders, and we have to obey the elders, listening to our elders, and another face when we go and, you know, and be part of the government. Many of my cousins are working in private hospitals or things like that, that they had to interact in different way. But when they go to Tejutla, they go and they like to go to Tejutla because they wanted to encounter the roots. There is something like I don't know, something related over here would be like going to church every Sunday, I guess. For us, go back to Tejutla is a pilgrimage, going to Tejutla to encounter our roots. So that's basically how the cooperative movement has been helping us in all of these 200 years, I think. And the other thing with the marketplace, as you see over here in the picture, we think how we interact in those 2 different worlds. Many times we know that we have to go on Sundays, we have to go to church, but at the same time, the marketplace is going on. We also have to go do our prayers in the cornfield of the sacred space that we have in our houses, and burn our candles, burn our incense, talk to the being that we believe in, or the being that it connects to with us, with our mind, and when that strength that we have, when our interior strength, we go to the market, and also we have to go to face the Catholic Church and put a candelita or put a little candle over there too for St. James or whatever festivities in town, and we are part of that. We always believe that if you have this spiritual and that blessing, if he is Catholic, if he is Maya, we receive the blessing. And it's that energy that is giving us, that they put us into this path of harmony. And that's what we call the marketplace, is a sacred place, because in the exchange of apples for beans, or buying apples for beans, is I need you and you need me in order to survive. And so that is the sacred place, and we call when we do especially the ceremony that we do for the marketplace, is we invoke the energy of Sikin. Sikin is the energy that it gives us. Well, we can say, sometimes we say, oh, that's the energy of money, but it's not the energy of money per se. It's just give us that. It's represented by the eagle. Sikin means bird. but in this case, it's represented by the eagle. So, and the eagle means that you are looking things in the marketplace from above. And also how you going to see from above what you gonna pick. And so we give that energy, we give thank you to the energy of seeking with, let's say, it's a special seed. And also we give chocolate or cocoa beans. That is our gratitude for the marketplace, for this wealth. And in the past, the cocoa bean was used for as a currency. And so that's why we always give that, we burn that chocolate or cocoa bean as a gratitude for what we have. And so the marketplace for us, and I guess that's how the cooperative is blending with our, when our Mayan belief with Mayan cosmovision, is because the vigilante committee is telling us if we are not doing right, they reprint us. They ask us for, you know, to do good things and to follow the rules of the rules of the cooperative. So, and I think that when we sit at the table in our house and when we are in our Mayan spirituality, we listen to our elders. And so I guess that's why this combination of cooperative movement with the Mayan cosmovision is like it blends very nicely, because it's a relationship not only with humans, but also is the relationship that we have with our Mother Earth. So I guess I don't want to, I guess if you guys have any questions, I don't know if in my English is understandable, but if you know, I would love to hear from you if you have any question for us. Ben?
This is Nina from the Ajo Center for Sustainable Agriculture. I'm all fired up. Thank you, Lupe. Your English is definitely understandable. I think for me, you gave me a lot to think about. And I know I can tell that there's much more to say and talk about. But I have kind of two questions coming to my mind, kind of just if you could maybe elaborate on them. First question, I always wonder, you know, when people come together and work together, you know, do you guys have rules or guidelines, or how do you guys work together? That's my first question. And my second question is, what would be your advice if there was a community? You kind of said that you were kind of introduced into this from the outside, but if you could give any advice from all your experience to a community of growers or growers and artists wanting to start a collaborative, what would be your advice?
Well, one of the things is the cooperative is totally voluntary. So if you join voluntarily, you will have, you know, that commitment to meet and to have your own guidelines. I don't know how is the situation where you live, but I think it just depends where you live, and I think listening to the community, how they wanted to run the organization, that's very important. I think each community works different, and I think the more important part is to listen to the community.
And you had One thing of the question is yes, structures. So I'm going to tell a story that Lupe tells. She was like her first time in the United States 20 years ago. There were some young hippie types, Anglo kids in our city that wanted to start a co-op, a consumer co-op. So they asked her to consult with them. And she told them after a week that, you know, you guys are not going to work. This isn't going to work because on one level, they thought the word cooperative was like some Tibetan magic chant that you say the word cooperative 3 times and all of a sudden it's kumbaya and life is easy. And she goes, first, you guys don't have a need. And we have, like where she's from in Guatemala, the government didn't exist. If it wasn't killing you, then you were pretty happy. It's kind of really hard to explain the context, but she's from a place where neither the Mexican or Guatemalan government really asserted authority over the region. And the only thing they ever did was to police people to keep them from rising up. But in terms of social services, zero. So there was very much, we need a cooperative in order to survive. So first was that need. Second is if there is another word that works for cooperative, it is community organizing. And community organizing is lots of work. So she talks about the different committees. There is very much a structure. First of all, cooperativism is about one-on-one communicating with neighbors. When she says listening to people, that's work going out and setting up the spaces where people are coming to discuss issues. So concientización in Spanish, the education committee. The education committee is everything from the basics of bookkeeping and finance to also what is the political reality of the state we live in? Why are we not allowed to get seeds from the United States without going through a very small oligarchy that has licenses for seeds? So what can we do in this context? Also, the vigilance committee. So a typical cooperative has an administrative committee, a vigilance committee, and an education committee. The vigilance committee is like internal auditing, but it's internal auditing of both the books as well as, you know, if you talk about consensus group dynamics, you have a thing with like Vibes Watcher, and has somebody got a hidden agenda? Are they trying to manipulate the discussion or get their friends elected? So a vigilance committee, you got to have people showing up to all the meetings, looking at the books, and being engaged. And so, yes, cooperatives, there is a structure, there is processes, and one of the number of reasons why cooperatives fail is people officially motivated to do that's required for a cooperative to function. And consider one of the biggest problems with doing cooperatives in the global north or in the United States is people frequently think there's other alternatives such as charity or the church or the government. And so they look for a magic cookie jar to come in and fund something or do something for a community rather than people being sufficiently motivated to show up and do it themselves. So unfortunately, she's had a really bad cold.
I don't know if it's called it's COVID or whatever it is. I'm coughing too much.
I appreciate the explanation, Ben, and gosh, Lupe, I do hope you're feeling better. That take care of yourself, and thanks for still coming today and telling us. You know, like I think, Ben, you're pointing on a couple of very important issues, and that a lot of people don't understand why cooperatives in the South oftentimes work so much better than here. So I appreciate you for elaborating on that.
Personally, one of the most transformational things I experienced was, I guess, when I showed up, I had a unique opportunity of doing human rights accompaniment. I was in Guatemala accompanying people targeted for assassination, which enabled me to visit lots of different communities. So I got to witness, if you will, lots of different recipes. And I was amazed with Tecutla as well as other communities that had strong cooperatives, because if you think about potatoes, in the highlands of Guatemala, you have lots of indigenous communities. In a sense, they're all the same potatoes. But I was able to witness different structures, and the cooperative being one of the structures in the communities that had cooperatives, a really strong cooperative movement. The people were incredibly resilient, dynamic, and creative. So in some communities, you start to talk about the possibility of a project, and there is a great deal of negativity. Nothing is possible. There's a lot of problems. And so getting anything started, getting, of course, in physics, catalyst, once you have a body in motion, it's easier to keep a body that's in motion going. It takes all of the energy in the world to get something started. And working in the communities that have a strong cooperative, you have an idea, and all of a sudden 15 people are starting to say, okay, well, let's do this, let's do this. People are showing up, and there's this vibe of excitement and happiness. We can solve this problem, and let's do it. And by the way, it's really fun to solve this problem. And so, like, what I don't know if Lupe can think of what that magic is with that psychology, but in her community, I mean, they're instantly identifying an opportunity or there's an issue, and there's no talk about how we can't do this or we tried that in the past and everybody got in an argument. It's like, well, it might not work, but we won't know unless we do it.
I think one of the issues is that we was the forgotten place from Guatemala. So being in the border of, our border is with Mexico, and so and up to now, a lot of people go to Mexico for the marketplace, and there is a lot of what's it say, contrabando.
Contraband,
black market, back and forth from Mexico and Guatemala. So I think for us is, hey, we find it over here and let's go get it. And I think that's the only frontier in between San Marcos and Guatemala. San Marcos is in the border of Mexico and Guatemala. There is 1 week that is free commerce, meaning you can go back and forth anytime you want and get merchandise from Mexico or get merchandise from Guatemala and sell them to Mexico. It's only 1 week a year. That marketplace is crazy. It is just unbelievable. And I think it's because that relation that there is in that border, that basically you have to do 1 week of free, free trade. That's totally free trade. There's no borders. It is just going over there. And the other thing is, because we hear more Mexican news than Guatemalan news. And so that's probably why we just have to do it. And I guess that's why this invading on us, that we have to do because we don't have any other option. And the government is not going to do it for us. We are the forgotten area. And even up to 1845, that basically that region was fighting in Guatemala to 6 states. There are 5 states: Guatemala, Honduras, Salvador, Nicaragua, Costa Rica. And so the area, the Western Highlands, where I come from, was fighting to Guatemala to become their own state, because they were so forgotten. They always been forgotten. They wanted to become the 6th state. So I guess that's one of the things that has been, but I think These days, with technology and everything, the cooperative is still going on. They are growing tremendously. And now they are receiving money from immigrants here in the United States and distribute the money among all the people who is down there. There are being, they can issue credit cards, but they cannot issue checks. It's really weird.
Well, the bank, that's what they can do.
Yeah, we have limitations as a cooperative. And so I think overall, we just have to obey what the government is saying for the cooperative to how to operate, but at the same time, all together manage all of that money that it is put it in the hands and the production of the people in the area. So I think it has been a blessing, and also it has been not too much, because in one hand they give us this opportunity, but on the other hand also they squeeze a lot of the Mayan culture. But it's still, little by little, we've been, going, recognizing our roots. And after the peace agreement from the Civil War, we've been able to, there is a lot more freedom from the indigenous communities.
One of the most transformational things, just real quick, that I experienced was, I guess you say when I went down, I was like a Christian socialist. But I had this, when I say that, I had a notion of the European binary thinking of Satan center, capitalist socialist, money's bad, market is bad, economics is bad. You should be completely altruistic and give things away. And working with peasants in the cooperative movement, one is this notion of the market as a sacred space. And that like Maha Wilich or Matakuyo Ase in Lakota, relations, all my relations, and the notion that the market is a sacred place based on relationships, and we sustain ourselves through the market. And I had an experience going down in the marketplace, because in Guatemala, markets are sort of a combination of a church service, a soccer game, Friday night mall. It's a social event, and people, it's a community event. And when you're engaging in the marketplace, there's a form of negotiation, and it's not about trying to get somebody down on price. It's a social contract. If you make more money, you're expected to pay more. So that was one of the things I learned when Mayans are negotiating in the marketplace. They're talking about what is a fair price for both parties. So for example, if somebody has cancer and their kids are sick, a vendor would very well give them food because they need it. And so it's a negotiation about the value and how much work goes into it. And we bring like tourists down from the United States, and they're thinking that it's about screwing over somebody or getting the cheapest price possible. But that kind of shows two different views. And one of the transformational or healing things that I've seen through the indigenous cooperative model is looking at how providing for your kids isn't evil. And like Guadalupe, every time she sells something, she blesses the money that comes in, the first sale of the day. And I think something we really need to do when you talk about ethics and morality, seeing like how indigenous people see things that are real. Guadalupe's father, the first thing he said is, please don't give anything away in the communities. And all of the indigenous elders that I worked with all saw that altruism and charity is dangerous because it's not real. Whereas if you're doing something that's based on meeting people's needs through the market, that's reality. And we tend to think of the market or exchanging or business as something evil about greed. And the transformational thing I learned from working with indigenous cooperative people is that we should be looking at the market and business as a sacred thing that enables all of us to survive. Any other questions? Can't find the chat box to see if anybody's putting it in the chat box.
Okay, I guess, well, we are at the 1 hour mark too. So much more food for thought. I really always enjoy these conversations, and looking forward to the next opportunity when the two of you can both share your knowledge and skills and experience and fire. Gosh, thank you for firing me up. And Caitlin, did you want to say anything else?
Just thank you for joining us and taking the time for the presentation. It was great to hear your perspective on everything and learn more about cooperatives. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
So with that, then let's bring this to an end, and thank you everybody for attention. Thank you to Ben and Lupe, and we'll see you again soon, I hope.